We are knee-deep in the Age of Apocalypse today as we join Wolverine in his first ever solo full-length excursion in this terrible new world Marvel has introduced us to. We join Logan and Jean Grey on a secret mission to sabotage one of Apocalypse's seawall defense stations, but we don't know exactly why, as the human High Council who sent them on this mission like to play their cards close to the chest. What is the purpose of their suicide mission, and what dangers lurk in the bowels of the seawall defense system? We'll find out today in today's episode. Let's go. Welcome to HTP Storytime. We are looking at a very complex book today, issue 1 of Weapon X, which is the first installment of the Age of Apocalypse Timeline Wolverine comic series. It's also the 5th Wolverine comic ever officially released in South Africa. We see here the double-barreled cover with a new title at the top and the old Wolverine logo at the bottom, just so people walking to the newsagent still know what's going on. We all came in looking for Wolverine, and instead we found Weapon X. Wolverine has one arm in this timeline, and he's also dating Jean Grey. He may have lost an arm, but he gained a ball and chain. Hey-oh! Fortunately, we have old reliable Adam Kubert on art duties, and the rock-solid voice of Wolverine, Larry Hama, doing the script. How can we not have a great time? Even though everything's been changed, there's still a familiar feeling to the readers. First things first, ads watch for issue 5. We get a fresh collection of capitalism this month. At the back we see an advert for the newly released Fleer Ultra X-Men trading card series from 1995. I have a decent collection of these cards from when I was a kid. They were pretty amazing. We additionally get an advert for the Batman Forever movie trading cards on sale, and the Simpsons trading cards also on sale. Trading cards are very much the thing in 1995. And finally we see an ad for the Judge Dredd movie starring Sylvester Stallone. We open on Wolverine and Jean Grey riding a Sentinel, the giant robots humans have built to protect them from mutants. We are currently flying to the Great Atlantic Sea Wall that shields Apocalypse's America from attack, specifically attack of the humankind, who would love to throw a wrench in Apocalypse's work. The Human High Council has sent Logan and Jean Grey on special mission to destroy the targeting installations of the sea wall. The idea is they fly in on a Sentinel, blow up the control room and zip out. Easy peasy. This unit's electronic countermeasure suite has exceeded overload parameters on a terminal curve. What is that in plain speak, Jean? The radar jammer just fried itself, Logan. This unit has been prioritized to deliver 2 mutants with temporary termination amnesty to the Mid-Atlantic Seawall, Section 5 Radar Control Center. You did your job, Sentinel, you got us here. Now it's up to Logan and I to finish the mission. Did you catch what that big lug said, darling? He said our termination amnesties were temporary. The High Council sure knows how to keep it close to the vest. Wolverine encounters a bit of a roadblock as he starts heading down to the 7th level control center, and we get our first taste of Wolverine's catchphrase throughout this 4-part series, eat adamantium and die. Jean Grey sends it packing with one attack and tells Wolverine to quit goofing around. The Sentinel outside waiting to return our heroes when their mission is done is getting shot to pieces, but it notices a teleportation beam has just activated. It's transporting an unknown mutant sent by Apocalypse. Jean senses it as well and tells Logan. He wants to take the mutant down, but Jean says they have a much more important mission. She tells Wolverine to go do what they have been sent to do while she stands guard. I'm coming back for you, darling. I know you will, Logan. Wolverine finally shows his true worth by ripping every single guard in the installation to shreds. The unknown mutant shows up, all business. It is Cyclops' brother, Alex Summers, better known as Havoc. Jean, Logan, Cyclops and Havoc have of course had a long history together. He has some pretty choice words for Jean Grey, who he knows from when she was held captive by Mr. Sinister and saved by Wolverine. You, I should have known, Havoc. Well, if it isn't the escapee from the breeding pens. My brother Scott is just dying to lay eyes, or should I say eye on you. Where's your hairy boyfriend? I'd love to make a present of his other hand to my dear sibling. Where is he, breeder sow? Where's your disgusting little paramour? Why? Do you want him to gouge your eye out so you and your brother can be a matching set? Oh, for a DNA repository, you've got wit. Too bad I have to... It looks like Jean has had her last adventure, but Logan saves the day in the nick of time. You're not the Summers brother I really want to stomp, but you're the one who's here. Jean Grey, as always the voice of reason, suggests they get the heck out of there while the Sentinel can still transport them back home. Wolverine and me think they should have spared the extra 5 seconds to kill Havoc while they had the chance. But hey, what do we know? Jean Grey says there's no time for revenge. The Sentinel has been fighting a holding action while implementing a self-repair program. It looks like the repairs are in keeping up with the damage. Havoc shows up again and Wolverine and I can't help but point out that we were right before. I knew I should have stopped his clock. Fortunately, the Sentinel is more than capable of handling Havoc. How, you ask? Well, first he shoots out his rocket hands. Okay, cool, I'm with you. They snatch up Havoc. Okay, I'm still with you, that's cool. They plunge him back into the transporter he came from. Okay, cool. It's a little improbable to maneuver that, but okay, cool. And then the rocket-powered hand, the size of a car, presses the button marked teleport on the control panel. Okay, now you've lost me. It worked though. We then get a truly epic shot of what the point of Wolverine's mission was all along. The Human High Council has sent in Sentinels with transport platforms to fly from Europe to America to go save the last remaining humans still surviving on Apocalypse's American wasteland. Jean and Wolverine had to destroy the targeting systems of the Great Atlantic Sea Wall so that the squadron can fly through Apocalypse's impervious fortifications. The Human Council is evacuating the last humans from the continent. Looks like we're going against the traffic today. It's the Great Airlift, Logan. What very well may be the last hope for the humans left in Apocalypse's empire. Look at it, Logan. Sentinels and transports as far as the eye can see. The Europeans reaching out to our people. Doesn't it give you hope? Cut to Apocalypse in his citadel. Stay your report, Cyclops. An entire scanning sector just went offline on the Atlantic Sea Wall. I want hollow displays of rectified situations, not ongoing failures. Recycle all responsible infinites. You were saying, Cyclops? My lord, as far as we can tell, and incredible as this sounds, Sinister has transmitted vital information about your plans to the Human High Council via 2 mutant couriers. Cyclops reveals to Apocalypse what we learned in X-Men Alpha, that Mr. Sinister has betrayed him by selling secret data to the Human High Council. the last human government. That's important exposition for the wider Age of Apocalypse storyline, but for us and Logan it's not really relevant. Our story does not return to this thread. And it's not important to Apocalypse either, apparently. Apocalypse isn't even fazed by what Cyclops tells him. Just a tiny bit impressed. Indeed, I am impressed. It seems my loyal worm has grown legs and learned to crawl. He can't crawl fast enough to escape, Lord. We are rousing all his known cronies and scouring the continent. You needn't be too diligent in this matter, Summers. I have taken my own steps. But he points out that he is already one step ahead of Mr. Sinister. He already knew he would betray him. Would it be impudent of me? Yes. Cyclops pushes for more information here, but Apocalypse denies him. We learned in X-Men Alpha that Cyclops and Mr. Sinister are very close. He calls him father. I'm sure he would love to know what Apocalypse is up to and pass that on to Sinister. And it shows that Apocalypse already knows he can't trust Cyclops, and he isn't even concerned. He could kill Cyclops right there for fraternizing with the enemy, but it's beneath his lofty ambitions. He just shrugs it off like a mosquito bite. Apocalypse is really something else. We also learn what fate befell Havoc, as Beast shows up on the communicator. We saw earlier that Havoc and a Sentinel hand got dumped in a teleportation platform together. Let's see what Dr. Beast's prognosis is. Forgive the interruption, Lord Apocalypse. A transporter beam mishap has resulted in Havoc being fused with a Sentinel hand on a molecular level. He's in no condition to give a report on the problem in Sector 5, but he keeps raving about the one-handed mutant. Is that a bone saw, Dr. McCoy? Yes, Lord. Do what you have to do. Back to Logan and Jean, now safely returned to Britain via Sentinel. But we learn all is not idyllic between Logan and Jean, as our all-star writer Larry Hama lays some heavy stuff on us. Let's read. She's my one and only darling Jean. Sometimes I think my love for her is the only thing that keeps me from sliding back into that wild redness. That howling killer animal state they pulled out of my deepest subconscious back in the project, the Weapon X project. Sometimes I'm afraid that what she feels for me ain't love but some kind of gratitude for that time way back when I busted her out of the pens and threw down with Scott Summers. Ouch, let's not brood on that, shall we? You're too quiet, Logan. What are you brooding about? That Sentinel didn't get us all the way back to London just so we could take in the sights. I'm thinking we ought to go downstairs and see what the High Council is up to. Let's meet the Human High Council and see what they are scheming. The Human High Council, the last human government on Earth, consists of Moira McTaggart, a geneticist and friend of the X-Men, and one-time love interest for Charles Xavier. That's in the real timeline, of course. Here, she seems pretty much the same, a good guy. Bolivar Trask is a villain in the real timeline. He's the guy who invented the Sentinels, and in the Age of Apocalypse, he's pretty much the same guy. We have a lobotomized Emma Frost, also known as the villain, the White Queen. She's a telepathic mutant, but due to the lobotomy she has had, she's lost her powers. She's also dating Brian Braddock, known as the superhero Captain Britain in the real timeline. Here he is the rich industrialist who funded the creation of the Sentinels. And finally we have Mariko Yashida, our friend Lady Deathstrike, who we met a few episodes back. She's not the villain here she was in the real timeline. She actually seems very nice and conscientious. Let's listen in. The information brought to us by the two mutant couriers makes it all too apparent that Apocalypse has been pulling the wool over all our eyes. His overtures of peace are nothing more than a smokescreen for his strategic forces build-up. He is, in fact, preparing an offensive strike against human-saturated Europe. Brian says Bolivar and Moira are dead on. Even as we speak, a special operation is in progress to rescue hundreds of thousands of humans from along the American coast, airlifted out by squadrons of Sentinels. Sentinels courtesy of Braddock Enterprises, of course. Thank you, Mrs. Frost, for bringing that up. It is now up to the Human High Council to end the threat of apocalypse once and for all, and by any means necessary. Now we're talking, says Brian. Wolverine notes that these geeks are finally showing some gumption. May I interject? Not everyone is in agreement with this doomsday strike against North America. And here we have the major story thread that's going to be running through this 4-part comic series. The reason the Human High Council arranged the mass evacuation we just saw is because they want to nuke North America and wipe out Apocalypse and his armies before he wipes out humanity. It's a pretty ballsy move. Braddock here sums it up. I've had it up to here with Mariko's whining. We have transcended the mere civilities of war. It is kill them all now or wait to be killed. And I, for one, won't. And then we get a few filler panels of an assassin named Magma sent to kill the Human High Council. Wolverine kills her, and we get a cool panel here. Logan, your arm. No sweat, darling. The healing factor will kick in when the flames die down and the adamantium cools off. We don't know it yet, but this panel is foreshadowing for what's to come in the next issue. And that was the catalyst for old Braddock here to go on his rousing patriotic speech. Isn't this attack enough to prove my point? Don't you understand that we have no choice? We must institute Project Scorch Earth. We have the will, and now, my friends, we have the means. But his precious domain will be nothing but a radioactive wasteland. Apocalypse wants a brave new world for his filthy kind, so be it. We get an epic backdrop, fist shaking defiantly at the heavens. Now that is how you do a speech, ladies and gentlemen. Go for it, Braddock. You don't know what you're saying, Logan. This is the beginning of a descent into madness. And here we see the contrast between Jean Grey and Logan's worldviews. Just one of the sources of schism in their relationship. Everyone would have loved to see Wolverine and Jean Grey get together, but we can see now that it's just never meant to be. They are just too different. In the real timeline, the Logan Jean Grey thing is romantic because it's like unrequited love between the two. Like, you always have that what might have been moment. The thing is, if they did end up dating, they would probably soon realize that they just aren't compatible as a couple, despite their chemistry. And that's kind of sad, man. And there we have the first issue of Wolverine in the Age of Apocalypse timeline, Weapon X. And it was a good one. Action, drama, intrigue, we got it all. I was still sad as a kid when I bought this to not have the old classic Wolverine on the pages. The first 4 issues was so great, but after this comic book I was open-minded. This issue was excellent and I was willing to see where this goes. In the next issue, Wolverine is on fire again.